Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. What's going on, everybody? Thank you very much for tuning in. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show, the Sliwa Show, 8 a.m. on the dot, Tuesday, April 15th. Few days away from the NBA playoffs starting, playing games starting tonight. What a fun time of the year. Thank you very much for hanging out. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. If you guys can do me a favor, please subscribe to the channel. It takes a couple seconds. Just hit that subscribe button. Share it if you think there's other people that like the content, like the videos if you like them. Would greatly appreciate all that. All right, good morning. Cheers to everybody here. My first sip of tea this morning. Haven't had one yet. Sometimes I like to try to get my tea in about a half hour before the show starts. Other times, let's just do it together. It's a good cup of tea. Good cup of tea. We're closing in less than a week. I'm going to get back on the coffee train. I've had some people tell me, Hisley, well, you went coffee almost 50 days without coffee. Why don't you just stay without coffee? I'm like, why don't you stay without coffee? Okay? Don't worry about what I'm going to do. Don't worry about what I'm going to do. I look forward to have some coffee. But tea has done its job. Tea's done its job. All right, I got a quote here for everybody. We got a packed show today. By the way, no guest in today's show. I'm moving the guest that I was going to have. That's going to be on Thursday, kind of shifting around my schedule. I got a kind of a weird week going on this week, so I'm trying to kind of juggle everything and make things work. Okay, so quote today. Where the hell is it? Success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. It's kind of a deep one right there. Success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. Phenomenal quote there. I got some good quotes lined up here for the rest of this week. Just a heads up. You guys got a quote you want to share with everybody, please feel free to do so. I got a rundown that I want to give to everybody, just give everyone an idea what we're going to be talking about in today's show. Hit on a lot of different topics, so I'm looking forward to breaking it down with everybody. Of course, we'll always take a look at everybody's comments and get your guys' thoughts on whatever the topics that we have coming up here. Biggest concern versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. We're going to spend a little bit of time on that. I think everybody's talking about the Lakers. I saw some expert picks yesterday, clean across the board, all Lakers. I mean, I told you guys yesterday as well, I got Lakers in 6, so that's my prediction on the series. But I almost feel like people are also underestimating Minnesota, that I think people are maybe making it sound like this is going to be an easy series for the Lakers. I think Lakers got some work to do. Move this in a little bit. I think Lakers got some work to do. I think this is most definitely going to be a challenging series. I give the Lakers the advantage, definitely, but we'll kind of get through biggest concerns versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I want to spend a little bit of time on that. I had to guard Anthony Edwards. I did this briefly. I touched on it on Sunday when I did my show. I did the post-game show, and we were just kind of getting an idea of Lakers seeding and everything else, and we knew it was going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves. But I'll talk about Ant for a little bit. Kind of his perspective on the series, what they were able to accomplish last year, how wild some of the comparisons were to Anthony Edwards during the playoffs last year. It was like, guys, relax. Everybody want to compare this guy to Michael Jordan, which, by the way, is wildly unfair to him. But anyways, world we live in today. So we'll talk a little bit about Anthony Edwards, kind of what this series means to him, how he'll try to attack the Lakers, what it means for him to go up against LeBron and Luka. So I think there's some interesting storylines looking at it a little bit from a Timberwolves perspective. Redick's first postseason, I mentioned it for a second yesterday when I had Chris McGee on, Geeter from Spectrum Sportsnet, but I didn't get a chance to kind of get more in depth into it. And I want to get people's response of what they, if there's any concern that it is JJ's first playoff or first postseason as a coach. Is this LeBron's best last chance at a championship? I know offseason can come. Lakers can go make some more moves, but the West isn't going to get any easier. LeBron's not getting any younger. And frankly, isn't the West kind of wide open right now? I know you got some of your favorites, but we'll look at if this is his best opportunity or his best crack at another championship. with him and Luka together. Luka tops jersey sales. I wouldn't make too big of a deal about this, but because I've had so many people ask me, hey, Al, do you think Luka's going to re-sign with the Lakers? I think this is a great example of why the future of having Luka with the Los Angeles Lakers is very bright for Luka. I think the Lakers are going to do their part of everything they can to try to be competitive and win championships. We'll get into that. And then I just got a lot of NBA news. There's a lot of stuff going on around the NBA. Mike Budenholzer fired from the Phoenix Suns. I don't know what that owner's doing, but let's just say finances aren't a problem for him. Playing tournament starts today. There's 2 games. Pistons restrict ticket sales, trying to get Knicks fans not to buy tickets. I want to get people's opinion on that. And then the favorites to win it all, Lakers are not on that list as far as the actual favorites. So got busy show right there. That's a good little rundown right there. All right, let me see what everybody's got to say here. I think I've seen this one before, but we'll read it again. I can't relate to lazy people. We don't speak the same language. I don't understand you. I don't want to understand you. People talking to me? Was that quote pointed at me? All right, let's keep going here. See if there's any other quotes here. If there isn't, all good. I just try to like to look here and see what's going on. Gustavo, morning from Brazil. Slee, let's go. Ant-Man, Pac-Man, Superman, Lakers in 5. Damn, this man has... Did Shannon Sharp just not completely take a piece of this content and it has just run wild? All right, looks like we're good to go. Let's keep things rolling here. Let's keep things rolling here. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you for hanging out. Okay. Busy week this week. You know, I kind of mentioned a little bit. I'll be kind of running around, a little hectic, but we're figuring it out. I know there's going to be one day this week that I'm not going to be doing a show, and it looks like it's probably going to fall on Friday, but we'll see. I'm still kind of figuring out some stuff with my schedule. All right, let's get things started here. Biggest concern versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yesterday, I spent a lot of time kind of consuming content, right? When I'm done with my show, enjoyed my show yesterday, and then I eventually, obviously, I had Chris McGee on. But when my show ended, I was kind of busy running around, had a couple of meetings, so I was driving around. So I try to listen to some podcasts when I'm driving around. I was listening to a Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. And I'm blanking on the name right now. And I'm going to try to get – I know I got somebody from the Timberwolves tomorrow. I'm going to also try to get somebody from the Timberwolves for Thursday as well. I got Alan Horton tomorrow. He's the radio play-by-play voice. But I was listening, and I'm like, can I get their perspective? What do they make of this series? What do they make of the matchup? What are some of the strengths maybe that I didn't watch Minnesota Timberwolves basketball all season long, and I can't really tell you what the great strengths are other than just kind of reading some articles. Rather, in this case, I'm listening to 3 different podcasters all on together, and they're breaking down everything for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I put on here biggest concerns versus the Timberwolves. One thing I will say right out the gate, and I felt this vibe from the podcast that I was listening to. Minnesota is definitely being overlooked. Minnesota is definitely a team where it's like, all right. And by the way, I probably already caught myself doing this. I think I might have done it yesterday where I'm like, hey, at the absolute minimum, Lakers better be beating the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then we're talking about a long series against Houston. If it is Houston, Houston may very well play Golden State in the first round, depending on what happens tonight between the Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies. So with that in mind, I kind of sat back and I'm like, all right, well, are we underestimating the Minnesota Timberwolves? Are we overlooking the Minnesota Timberwolves? I'm going to share something here with you guys. I thought it was kind of interesting. And again, these are Minnesota Timberwolves people that are putting these up because they feel like their team is getting wildly disrespected in the process of getting ready for the postseason, getting ready for the playoffs. All right, let me share my screen here real quick with everybody. This was the predictions across the board. I think these are all ESPN people. But this is the West first round, and somebody had posted this motivation, Jim Petersen. So I'm sure somebody covering the Minnesota Timberwolves. Lakers in 6, 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 Lakers in 7, Lakers in 6, Lakers in 7. Final tally: Lakers 10, Minnesota 0. There was not one of these people. Obviously, a couple people that I used to work with right here. Couple people that are frequent on the show. So some good peeps on this list here. There's not anybody picking the Minnesota Timberwolves. By the way, I told you guys yesterday I picked Lakers in 6. So I'm not helping with a predicament or situation either. It doesn't really matter. That's what I feel. So because that's what I feel, that's all I'm really paying attention to. There is a very, very interesting, I would say, motivation that usually comes with, certain people that, with certain teams where they're trying to kind of find a reason of, all right, is there a way that we can gain motivation because everybody's picking against us? I'm trying to see here. All right, we'll just keep going here. I was looking at some of the comments. Sometimes can be more of a distraction, so I'm going to keep going on this. I'll tell you my concerns with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let me kind of simplify this. I do think they're being overlooked. The good news is I don't think JJ Redick's going to overlook them. I don't think the Lakers are going to overlook them. But do I think the media is saying that, hey, the Minnesota Timberwolves don't have a chance against the Lakers? Sure. I think that's happening right now. Part of the podcast I was listening to yesterday, and I think I had mentioned this because JJ had mentioned it. The Minnesota Timberwolves are top 10 in defense and top 10 in offense. That's the first time they've been top 10 in both of those categories since 2004, when I think they got to the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers. So clearly this team is doing something right. I do think they're a good team. Here's what I tell you are my main concerns with the Minnesota Timberwolves coming into the series. Okay. Number one, they got phenomenal depth. They're playing 8-9 guys a night. And I know for the playoffs, you tighten your rotation. That's fine. But they have real players. They're 3 players that they can play off the bench. No question about it. That's going to get a lot of minutes. Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, Nikhil Walker-Alexander. There's another player. There's 3 right there. They've got a really nice starting lineup, and they got phenomenal depth. So if you think that, you're just, we just got to worry about the starters, and then once their bench players come in, Lakers can take over. Not happen. They go 8 to 9 deep. I think it's going to be tough to win some of those bench matchups against the Minnesota Timberwolves, especially kind of just pay attention to this. I can help simplify it here. Dante DiVincenzo gives you 12 to 15 points, or Naz Reid comes off the bench, gives you 15 points, and Nikhil Alexander-Walker gives you, I'm making up numbers here. I'm not telling you that this is going to happen every single time. They're going to put up numbers. They're going to have some type of impact. So I think one of the concerns I have is the depth and the bench that the Minnesota Timberwolves have. Now, that doesn't mean the Lakers don't have a bench. You clearly have Dorian Finney-Smith coming off the bench. Vando's going to be there. Gabe Vincent's going to be there. Probably Jordan Goodwin, and you're not going further than that. Unless the Lakers just need size and they need another big, because it's Gobert, it's Naz Reid, it's Julius Randle. They got kind of a couple of bangers, but really it's Gobert. That's the real size for them, at least is playing around the basket. But with all that being said, I think you got to give the Minnesota Timberwolves some credit from a bench perspective. I do like the bench players that they have. Their bench players probably more consistent than our bench players. I think the Lakers have had games where Dorian Finney-Smith and Gabe Vincent have been phenomenal. I think Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo, they're just like, this is what they do on a night in, night out basis. You kind of know what you're going to get. Another thing that I'd be concerned about, or I'd look at against the Minnesota Timberwolves and say, okay, here's an area where Minnesota can be a problem or a headache as well. The size. there's a big size difference. Now, for the Lakers so far, it hasn't really hurt them. I remember I had Amin El-Hassan was on the show. This was about a month ago or so. I'm very curious to see how the playoffs play out as well, because some of the things Amin was predicting was eventually the size and the lack of rebounding is going to come back and hurt you. He also mentioned J.J. Redick in his first year as a head coach. That's also going to have an effect. So I'm very curious if this first round, or even if it's the second round, if Lakers are there and they got the Houston Rockets, how much is size, rebounding, how much of that stuff is going to hurt the Lakers, or how much were the Lakers able to kind of calm the water when it came to that? But the size difference, here's going to be the question. Listening to that podcast yesterday, I guess Rudy Gobert has been killing it for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's actually look. I'm curious to see if some of his stats, as of late. The point that they were trying to make is that he's been really, really good for them over the course of this, let's call it last month or so. He's been putting up monster numbers. We'll take a look. We'll kind of see his last few games, what's he been putting up. A 19 and 18, a 35 and 11. Damn. A 13 and 8, a 23 and 19. Okay, so he's been putting up some numbers. So Gobert clearly has been putting up some numbers for them. Gobert doesn't really concern me as much. I mean, to be honest with you, I think his presence on defense will be where I'm most curious. But I think the Lakers will I think they'll be strategic with Gobert. I don't know how great Gobert is going to be in the lineup for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think he'll have moments, but when the Lakers go small, do they want Gobert in there? Well, then they go Naz Reid, Julius Randle. So that's something to keep in mind. But the question that I would have for the Lakers against Minnesota, are you getting beat up off the glass? Are a lot of these putbacks and tip-ins coming in easy for the Minnesota Timberwolves? Is the size a big disadvantage? So far I got the bench. I got some of the size. And the last thing that I just want to mention here that I think would be a concern against Minnesota, balance. If they have a balanced attack where it's not all predicated and depending on Anthony Edwards, that's where I think the Minnesota Timberwolves can be a real problem. They're going to need 5 or 6 guys in double figures a night. And if they're getting 5 or 6 guys, if it's this, hey, Ant got 40, but nobody else really contributed, Lakers will be fine. If it's Ant got 28, but Naz Reid gave you 14, and Julius Randle gave you 18 and 11, and Gobert gave you 12 and 12, and go down the list. Mike Conley chipped in with 12, and Dante. That's where I think Minnesota can probably be at their best against the Lakers is they got a number of different guys that are contributing on a night-in, night-out basis. You don't have to do it every night. You got to do it 4 times to win the series. And I think that's the one area that I'd look at and say, is this everything's on Ant's shoulders, or they really built the right team around him where it's not all on his shoulders? I've said this before. I was not a fan of that trade when they traded for Karl Anthony Towns, but here they are. I think Minnesota is only a game difference than they were a year ago. Now, I know that's not the same thing from the standings perspective. Ant is a year older. Julius Randle's done a pretty good job for them this year. They got, obviously, players that they like. They like the mix of players that they have. I just wouldn't underestimate the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think at the end of the day, that would be my main point. I feel like Laker fans and Lakers media, everybody's just underestimating, like, hey, no problem, Minnesota in the first round. I do think Lakers are going to win. I do think they're going to win in 6, but that would be my only concern. They got good players. They got a really young 23-year-old in Anthony Edwards. There are some areas where I think they're going to have some advantage, whether it's going to be depth or it's going to be some of the size that they have. But I think the thing that I feel best about, I genuinely don't think J.J. Redick, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, go down the list of these Laker players. I don't think they're going to actually underestimate the Minnesota Timberwolves. So, yes, I do think the Lakers are going to win, but at the same time, I think there could be some headaches along the way. Okay, let's take a look here, and let's start looking at some of the comments. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, Slee, my only worry is that LeBron is simply not healthy whatsoever. Those groin injuries are difficult to heal. Yeah, I'm going to keep saying this because I've heard other people saying this at different times. I think other people have talked about in regards to LeBron. If I think the Lakers, nobody's saying anything. Nobody said anything on Sunday or nobody said anything on Friday after the game. Nobody said anything on Sunday. I think the fact that he gets a full week off. Listen, maybe there's something there, maybe there's not. But LeBron was playing some phenomenal ball over these last couple of games, so I'm less inclined to worry about it. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Just say no to coffee, okay? Jonathan, you okay over there? What's going on over here, Jonathan? You all good? Everything okay there, brother? Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. No idea what you're talking about, but thank you for being here. Okay, let's get another one of these. Yeah, well, we're gonna let Jonathan. We'll give him his own time to himself. He'll be okay. He'll be all right. He'll make it. I got faith. All right, let's take a look. Conley going to be hunted. Oh, they'll go after Conley. No question about it. They'll go after Conley. Just like I think there's going to be a lot of times where, obviously the Lakers will probably, or Minnesota's going to go after Luka, or they'll go after Austin Reeves. Guys are going to be hunted. That's what happens in the playoffs. Guys get hunted all the time. All right, let me see a couple more here that's in regards. More worried about Nas than Rudy, to be honest. Rudy Gobert has this wild. It's kind of funny. There's so much hate that goes towards Rudy Gobert. I don't know if I fully understand it, but kind of is what it is, I guess. But I'm with you that Gobert is not someone that really scares me. He doesn't. Now, Gobert can be a presence on the defensive side, sure. Give him the credit from that perspective. But I look at a lineup for them. Are they better off saying, okay, well, if Lakers are going to use LeBron as their 5, does Julius Randle become the 5 for the Minnesota Timberwolves? And if he does become the 5 for the Minnesota Timberwolves, all right, what's it all look like from there? Now it's Naz Reid. It's, guys that can switch on defense. Now their defense does drop without Rudy Gobert. So now it's up to the Lakers to try to take advantage from that perspective. But Naz Reid has always been kind of a Laker killer, to be honest with you. Playoff is about IQ and adjustments. LeBron, JJ, and Luka are all off the charts. Let's see what else we got here. What was wrong with Jonathan? What's going on with that? I was looking at some comments. I'm like, everybody's saying, like, can you block this guy? I'm like, I don't even know which guy we're talking about. Okay, this is a really, really good comment because this is kind of part of just how random this series is going to be. Data3 says, can we get stats from the 4 games this year between Lakers and the Wolves? I can't get those to you. Here's the only problem. 3 of those games came before Luka got traded to the Lakers. So they were still, with Anthony Davis. And the only game they played, the 4th game they played, was the Minnesota Timberwolves didn't have Julius Randle and they didn't have Rudy Gobert. So literally, I don't think there's anything that we can take from any of the games that the Lakers played the Minnesota Timberwolves. You guys remembered me kind of harping on this in the past. Every time the Lakers were about to face a new team, I'm like, hey, this is exciting. Because I've never seen Luka against Denver in a Laker jersey. I've never seen Luka and LeBron together at Memphis, or Luka and LeBron together with Austin Reeves at OKC or against Houston. So there were so many matchups that we got to towards the end of the season. Golden State Warriors is another good example. There are so many matchups we got to towards the end of the season where we just didn't have any data on what these two squads look like against each other. It's going to be the exact same thing for Minnesota. What can you take away from a game that you played in February against Minnesota and they didn't have Rudy Gobert and they didn't have Julius Randle? I can't take much away from that game. I just can't. And the way that team was back then, the way the Lakers were back then and where they are today, I don't think there's nothing that any of us can look at. And I think we're going to have to wait till after game 1, which is going to be on Saturday night, to finally say, okay, hey, we got something. And now we know how this team's going to play the Lakers. Now we know a little bit of their rotations. Now we know who's the closing 5 for the Lakers versus the closing 5 for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't think we have any of that right now. It's a great point. It's a good question, but I just don't think it's relevant. I just don't think it's relevant at this point. All right, let's see what else we got here. Let's see what else we have here. I'm going to read a couple more, and then I want to start talking to Ant real quick. The defensive liability will be there with Luka, AR, and Bron. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. People sleeping on the Clippers. Kawhi looks healthy. If healthy, Clippers are going to make some noise. Yeah, I don't know. I just have hesitation on the Clippers. I really do. I mean, here's the reality. I think if Jamal Murray is healthy, I think Denver wins that series. I actually think it's a very long series. I go Denver in 7 if Jamal Murray's healthy. If Murray's not healthy, then okay, I'll give Clippers the advantage. I don't think Clippers get past the OKC Thunder. So maybe I'm just not giving them enough credit. Maybe that's simply the case. But maybe I just haven't watched enough Clippers basketball. But for me, I think I'd like to see more. Okay, let's talk Ant real quick. I want to talk Anthony Edwards. How to guard Anthony Edwards. I won't spend too much time on this, but I think it's kind of a fascinating thing we got going here. Again, going back to that podcast that I was listening to yesterday. Part of that podcast, they were making this series sound, literally, this is what they said, that this is a bigger series for Ant than it was against the Dallas Mavericks last year in the Western Conference Finals. So I'm like, wait a minute here. What are you guys talking about? You got a chance to get to the NBA Finals, but this series is bigger. Why is this series bigger? And what they were saying was Anthony Edwards loves the bright lights. Anthony Edwards loves the attention. Anthony Edwards loves the everyone look at me and then I'll come deliver in the big moment. He's only 23 years old. Anthony Edwards is a stud. Nobody's saying that Ant is not a stud. I do think it was absolutely absurd last year where everybody wanted to all of a sudden start making comparisons that this is the next Michael Jordan. It's like, guys, he's 22 freaking years old. Can you give the man some time to just develop? Can you let the guy have 3-4 playoff runs and hopefully get to the NBA Finals and have some success? And then you could start making comparisons to Michael Jordan, the greatest player to ever play the game. All right, is what it is. But that's what was happening. But on this podcast, they were talking about how big of a game or how big of a series this is, because this is Anthony Edwards. The way they were trying to define it, it's like this is his moment. He's going up against the Los Angeles Lakers, the biggest brand in the NBA, one of the biggest brands in all of sports. He's going up against LeBron and Luka. They were kind of trying to make this like, this is Anthony Edwards' moment to go out there and do what he does. And this is as big as anything that he went through last year. And by the way, last year took out KD and the Suns, took out the Denver Nuggets. We obviously know that. And then got to the Western Conference Finals before Luka and the Mavs took him out. But when I'm kind of part of me that's listening to all this, I'm saying to myself, when I hear them hyping it up like that, and that this is Anthony Edwards' moment, and he's going up against the Lakers, and he could shut all these people up that think the Lakers are going to win this series, I felt like they were putting so much on Anthony Edwards' shoulder. For me, as someone who's rooting for the Lakers, I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. If you guys think you're beating the Los Angeles Lakers because this is a defining moment for Anthony Edwards, then go have at it, because that's not the way you're going to beat the Lakers. If Ant-Man is playing some isolation basketball and it's all about him, and this moment is, him trying to beat the Lakers and trying to beat Luka and LeBron and this and that, and you're making it so much about Anthony Edwards, then maybe I'm underestimating the Lakers and maybe I'm overvaluing Minnesota. Maybe this is going to be a 5-game series. because if this is just about Anthony Edwards, and this is just about Anthony Edwards, coming out, and it's his coming out party, and he's going to be that player that takes this so personal because of the team that he's playing and the opponents that he's playing and the attention on this series and on Minnesota because they're playing the Lakers, I think that plays right into the Lakers' hands. If Anthony Edwards is not doing this by committee, if he's not doing this with basically relying on 7 other teammates to get through the Lakers in the first round, then maybe the series isn't going to be as good as I thought. Now, how the Lakers should play him, for me, I want Anthony Edwards to play as much hero ball as possible. It's the other guys that I care more about, because I think if Ant does go off and it's one of those inefficient nights where, yeah, he got his 40, but it took him 26, 27 shots to get there, you live with that. My biggest concern, and I've kind of told you guys this before, is if it's everybody, if it's the entire squad for the Minnesota Timberwolves that are contributing, that's a much bigger problem than if Ant's going off on his own. So I almost felt like the Timberwolves podcast, they're putting too much pressure on him, and they were kind of making this more about it's Ant versus LeBron and Luka. You guys can, you can play it that way as much as you want, but Minnesota's not winning a series if that's how they're looking at it. By the way, Ant's a stud. He's a complete. He's a fun player to watch. He's one of the young players in the league that obviously has tremendous upside. I'm not trying to make it sound like I don't think that he's got a lot of value. What I'm trying to tell you is you don't win unless you got a squad. I don't care how good OKC is. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can go off for 40 every single night. If all those other players aren't contributing, OKC is going to have trouble. That's how the NBA works. One guy can't make it happen. So that gives a little bit of perspective from that side. All right, let me read a couple of these here. Eugene says, get rid of the conferences. Playoffs should be the best 16 regardless of conference. These are teams in the East that do not deserve to be in the playoffs. I don't think they'd ever do this. And Eugene, I appreciate you hanging out. I appreciate the super, and I appreciate you being a new member. Eugene, thank you, brother. Welcome to the Familia. Thank you for being here. But I will say this. I'll go back to your comment. I do like the seeding 1 through 16, but I still think you keep 8 in the East, 8 in the West. But if you had the worst record of all 16 teams, you're playing the best team, so I'm just going to give an example. I don't even know who's got the worst record. Let me just say it's Chicago or it's Atlanta or one of those teams. Then they got OKC in the first round. Problem is travel. People don't want Lakers and the Knicks to have a first round series, and then you got to travel back and forth between the East Coast and the West Coast. I know that's why they don't like doing it, but I love the idea and the concept. But I still keep 8 teams from the East and 8 teams from the West. Thank you again for being a member. Dino, thank you, brother. Appreciate you being a part of the show. Good morning to you as well. Thank you for the super, brother. All right, let me get a couple more comments in here, and we'll talk a little JJ. Team sport preach. Yeah, I just go back to it. It's if this is becoming an Anthony Edwards versus the Lakers matchup, then this is a short series. If this is Ant's got a lot of help around him, and he's very smart about using his help and very strategic in, obviously playing to the best of his ability, however you want to describe it, then we'll have a series. Then we'll have a series. Vando going to take this series personal. I think he's a legit beef with Edwards, something to look out for. Yeah, I heard somebody else saying that Julius Randle will take this series, take this personal as well. I think Julius Randle's, it's either he's got a player option next year or his expiring contract, one of the two. So Julius Randle's also trying to have an impressive playoff run for himself as well. We need Ant to take 30 shots a game. Yeah, I don't mind that. I told you. I think that's the best chance. This is a very, very short series if this is all about Anthony Edwards. All right, let's see what else we have here. Let's see what else we got here. Let Edwards go off, stop everybody else. Completely agree. I'm okay with Ant-Man having big games this series, but we need to keep everyone else in check to win this series. Completely agree. Look, here's the big difference between the Lakers and the Minnesota Timberwolves. The problem with the Timberwolves is, okay, let's say they contain Reeves, but Luka and LeBron go off. Okay, let's say they keep Luka in check, but Reeves and Bron go off. The problem is Lakers have legitimately 3 guys that can go off in any game. So that's going to be, I think, the biggest issue for Minnesota is how do you contain all 3 guys? How do you contain 2 of the 3? I don't think you do. I don't think you do. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay, let's keep rolling here. You know, I've been kind of looking at, sometimes you find yourself and you're like, all right, here you are going into a playoff series, and what are some of the areas of concern that you have? I'm not talking about the opposing team. I'm talking about your team. Think about a first-year head coach with the Los Angeles Lakers coming into a playoff run. That should be a big topic, right? It should be a big topic. I think most people would be saying to themselves, okay, if you have the first-year head coach as part of your squad, and this is the first time he's ever gone into a playoff run, you feel like there'd be a lot of articles and stories saying, you know, question mark about JJ Redick or head coach X. You know, you pick the name of whoever it is. Or inexperience, how much is that going to hurt the Lakers? Or JJ Redick's never been in this position before. We're all kind of concerned and worried to see what happens. I don't even feel like I'm seeing any stories about JJ, which, by the way, is a tremendous compliment to JJ Redick. The fact that literally, maybe occasionally I'll hear, hey, it's JJ's first playoff run. There were some comparisons yesterday comparing Minnesota's coach to Lakers coach, right? So JJ Redick as the example here. And everybody's like, nope, JJ Redick's fine. Schematically, he's brilliant. He does this well. He does that well. JJ's first playoff series, and I don't think anybody really has any concerns about him. I don't really know. I'm trying to look at if the head coaching will be a big disadvantage for the Lakers, and I don't think it's going to be. He has not given me a reason to believe, or probably any Laker fans out there. Let's see how he does. You know, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe by the time the playoffs start, there's a couple key mistakes that he makes, and it's a poor inbounds play, or he had the wrong guy defending the wrong player, or he didn't make the right rotation. Okay, then it's going to be a conversation, and we're sitting in those post-game shows. We'll obviously have a discussion about it. But has anybody does anybody going out of their way to be like, hey, this is going to be a major problem for the Lakers? I don't think people are. And I think that's just a compliment to what JJ's done in his first season, that he's already kind of given you an idea. I know what I'm doing. I'll make adjustments if I need to. The moment is not too big for me. There's kind of a lot of things to take away from JJ's first season. And for him to be coming into his first playoff round, I don't even feel like this is much of a discussion. Maybe occasionally you hear something, but I haven't heard much about JJ Redick. I really haven't. And I think that's a compliment what he's done this year. And maybe it becomes a topic. You know, maybe we're a couple of games in and you're like, man, I could really feel the difference between the way the Timberwolves are coaching and the way the Lakers are coaching. The way Chris Finch is making it happen and the way maybe JJ Redick is not. But I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think he's been one of the strengths of the Lakers this entire season. I think if you spend any time talking about a 50-game season for the Lakers, a 50-win season for the Lakers, number 3 seed, and however you want to talk about this season, JJ better be close to the top of your list of some of the reasons why. So I think that piece is interesting, that it's his first postseason run, and I don't feel like that many people are really concerned that it's his first postseason run. All right, let's take a look at some of these comments here. No sneeze today. Not yet. Not yet. Who is he going against? Phil Jackson? It's not about that. It's not about who's coaching on the other side. It's more about, I think it has a lot more to do with what you feel is, how do I put this here? You don't have to be coaching against Phil Jackson, but it's more about, are you worried about your coach? That's it. Are you worried about your coach? All right. Keep going here. Got a couple more I want to get into here. Interesting chat today. Let's just put it that way. Let me see a couple more of these here. I just want to get a couple on the JJ. The key for JJ is not to overreact, to overcorrect the first few games. Just listen to your vets. And by the way, he's got vets sitting on the bench with him as well. Guys that have been in the league for a long time. Nate McMillan, Scott Brooks, guys that have been there for a while. Let's get another one in here. Randall probably cooked the Lakers and Wolves win 4-0. This is the worst matchup ever for the Lakers. Wolves are big, and all we have is Bronny. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of funny to see that what we all thought was going to be a big problem for the Lakers in regards to what, some of the size was going to be, it never happened. Size was never a big problem for the Lakers. It just really wasn't. Now, we'll see what happens. I was almost even more concerned playing with I'd rather play against a more traditional lineup than a small ball lineup with the Golden State Warriors. For some reason, I think that one would be a headache. JJ has done a phenomenal job. Get another one here. I see JJ getting lots of love. Happy for him. All right. Ant is never a playmaker like Steph or Luka. Ant would pass just to get out of trouble. That's an area of his game he's going to have to add. That's definitely an area of his game that he's going to have to add. JJ has some tricks up his sleeves. We need to play Hayes sometimes. Yeah, I'm curious. That's another area that are the Wolves playing Gobert only when Hayes is out there, and then when Hayes goes off, they're like, okay, hey, we got to go small. Or I don't think they will. I think they'll give Gobert real minutes. I mean, Gobert is probably going to play 30 minutes a game, at least for a couple of these games before they make some major adjustments here. All right, let's see what else. Hayes will be a bigger impact than Gobert. We'll see. I mean, I think a lot of people just are not fans of Gobert, but I think Gobert he's certainly made some of his impact in the league. Okay, I'm going to switch gears here for a quick second. Thank you, by the way, for everybody being here. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Please subscribe to the channel if you are yet to subscribe. As always, I'm going to give a shout-out here to our partner. A shout-out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. Next topic I want to get into is going to be about LeBron and Luka. If this is kind of their best chance to win it together just because the West is wide open. Shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. If you or someone close to you has been seriously injured or is dealing with the loss of a loved one, you should find out what legal options you have. You deserve the absolute best in the business. You deserve the right legal team backing you, and that's Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. Probably a very daunting and intimidating process. You get into a situation or a family member gets into a situation, you need an injury attorney and you kind of don't know where to go. I can make a personal introduction. Brad Wallace has been somebody I've known for about 5 years. Used to advertise with me when I was over at 710 ESPN, and now obviously has followed me out here on YouTube, and it really just supports the channel. So I appreciate that. When it comes to holding insurance companies accountable and maximizing case results, go to my guy, Brad Wallace, and his legal team at the Wallace firm. Let them help you. He can help anybody in the state of California. We did create our URL, wallacewins.com/Sliwa, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. You can go to that website there. You can get a free consultation. And like I said, I'm happy to help any way possible. Shout out to him for being a part of the channel, part of the show. And thank you for the partnership. Shout out to a lot of the people in the channel as well. I feel like anybody that we have, you guys are welcoming of. So I really appreciate that as well. All right, let's get another one here. Let's get back to the topic I wanted to get into. LeBron and Luka. Let me spend a little bit time on LeBron Luka. Is this their best chance at winning a chip together? Let me kind of explain what I'm talking about. Bron's obviously not getting any older or not getting any younger. He's already 40 years old. By the time next year comes, I know we've been saying this for a while, but at some point, he'll continue to kind of slow down and he won't be the same player. This is what I think makes it interesting about this year. The question of, is this their best chance to win a championship together? I think knee-jerk reaction, it's like, no. They didn't put together the right roster. They had to just make the trade and figure it out from there. Look how good they've been with an imperfect roster. And in the summer, they can now make some more adjustments and kind of see where they go from there. Here's the only problem with what happens after this year. I think there's a combination of what the West looks like this year and what the West can look like next year. But here I think becomes the issue. There's some things that play to their advantage, and I think some things that go against them. Let me make a case of why this year could be the best chance that LeBron and Luka have of winning a championship together. First off, they're already in the playoffs. They get a week rest. I think the seeding-wise plays to their advantage. They get to avoid some teams that I think you would like to avoid until you get further in the playoffs. They're going to be playing teams that are very inexperienced in the first couple of rounds, it seems like, unless – if Golden State beats Memphis tonight and then they beat Houston, then, okay, we could wipe that one away. But if it's Minnesota in the first round and then Houston in the second round, clearly some inexperience there. I mean, maybe even get Thunder in the third round in the Western Conference Finals. There's some more inexperience that you get. The setup that they have this year is interesting. The West doesn't have a dominant team. OKC on paper is a dominant team. All right, they had kind of a rough final week of the season. Lakers played them well in 2 games. Could have probably took both games in OKC. I think Lakers look at that matchup and say, all right, we're okay with this matchup. Lakers are probably as healthy as you're ever going to see them. They're healthy, obviously, at the right time. Here's what happens in the offseason. I do think Lakers are going to do everything they can to obviously improve the roster, to get better and find a way and find some advantages to fill in the holes that they have. However, the West is only going to get better as well. And, you start looking at some of these young teams. Does OKC go out there and say, hey, we got to go swing for the fences and go get another player? Does Houston start to swing for the fences? What does San Antonio look like with De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama? And what kind of moves do they make in the offseason? Where does Kevin Durant end up? Does he end up in the perfect situation or an awful situation? I think the question mark that happens after this season, which is always kind of fascinating in the offseason, how much better does your team get? How much better does your conference get? Does the East get better? Does it get a little bit more competitive? And I don't have answers to all these, but looking at this year and kind of asking that question, is LeBron and Luka, is this their best chance to win a chip together? Is this LeBron's last chance to win an NBA championship? Could this be it for him? Could this be his last best opportunity? The West is wide open right now. What does the West look like next year? And what does LeBron personally look like next year? I think are all questions that you have to ask yourself. So something to keep in mind in regards to all that. All right, I do want to look at some of the comments here. And then I got a couple other topics I want to get into that are a little bit more NBA related. All right, let's take a look at some of the comments here. Shout out to everyone giving some love here and throwing in some supers here. Lakers are going to play Wolves size off the court and win in 5. A lot of confidence there. A lot of confidence from a lot of Laker fans, to be honest with you. I think a lot of Laker fans are not too concerned about this series. Play that size off the court. I think they're almost better off when that size is on the court. I think teams trying to go small against the Lakers is probably a better strategy for them. I feel like that's almost a better strategy. Thank you for the super, brother. I appreciate you. All right. Wonder how many rookie coaches have gone 50-plus wins in their first season. JJ deserves to be in the Coach of the Year talks. 2 a.m. in Australia. Love the show. I appreciate you, brother. Sergeant Dude, thank you for the super. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being in Australia and hanging out at 2 a.m. That's phenomenal. Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why nobody has concerns talking about JJ. Nobody's really pausing about, JJ Redick is the coach, and that's a huge disadvantage for the Lakers. I don't want to just kind of keep harping on Darvin Ham. I know that's come up a lot, but Darvin Ham and Michael Malone, that was kind of a wild difference between those two coaches as far as strategy goes, key situations, key moments, adjustments. That wasn't his strength. I don't think that was, clearly his strength. JJ's got a little bit of all that. Thank you for the supers. I appreciate it, fellas. Let's see what we got here. No, ZJ, incorrect. Not scared of him. I just don't want to play him in the first round. And by the way, I was talking about it. I just want to see something different too. I think Lakers beat the Golden State Warriors, but I think it's a long series. Not scared of them. I don't think there's a team really in the Western Conference that can go up and beat, and then that includes the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I disagree with that one. I mean, if by the way, if it comes off that way, then I'll tell you, the Warriors are a team that I think could be an incredible headache. They play small ball. They like the small ball. The advantage that the Lakers had of going small actually plays to the Warriors' advantage. But I also don't think Pajimski and Steph Curry, that court's not going to combine for 70 or whatever they had against the Lakers that last game that they played. Now they're not in the bracket. Well, they could technically be in the second round of the bracket. Play them in the second round, fine. Playoff time always gets me stressed and anxious. Let's go Lakers. There's no way LeBron's winning 3 competitive rounds in the playoffs before reaching the championship. He can't do it. Well, here's a good thing. He doesn't have to do it. You shouldn't say there's no way LeBron's winning 3 competitive rounds. What you should be saying is there's no way the Lakers are winning 3 competitive rounds. If this whole thing was on LeBron, then I'd be concerned. The good news is it's not all on LeBron. This is on LeBron, Luka, Austin Reeves, JJ Redick, Dorian Finney-Smith. It's a squad. It's the equivalent of when I was saying, if this is Anthony Edwards trying to do everything on his own, yeah, then the Minnesota Timberwolves are screwed. But it's not. Or, I mean, let's put it this way. If it is him trying to do everything on his own, then the Minnesota Timberwolves, this will be a very short series. Our best chance will be next year when we bring our core plus whoever we can get for Connect, a few contracts, LeBron coming back for sure. I will say this. I will say here's part of the good news with next year as well. You got some expiring contracts as well. So I think the Lakers have they got some opportunity to maneuver a little bit. So let's just put it that way. There's definitely some maneuvering for the Lakers. A couple first rounders that they have as well. My only hesitation is LeBron would be a year older, and the rest of the West is also trying to move forward as well. The rest of the West is also trying to compete with the Lakers or some of these other squads that are out there. Not his last chance, but the window is closing, Slee. Not his last chance, but best chance is really the point that I was trying to make. That Mavs game, that's a good point, was worth an entire season of chemistry building. Yeah, you're not lying there. You're not lying there. All right, let's see what else we have here. All right, let's see. Yep, Naz Reid is a free agent. So Naz Reid is another big-time player that will be available in the offseason as well. All right, here's another one we got. I want to get through a couple things here real quick before the show ends. I'm pretty close to 9 o'clock. I'm going to have to get out of here. NBA news. I got a couple NBA things I want to get into. I'll read a couple of your comments, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to save this Luka Topps jersey sales till tomorrow because I think it's a bigger question it's a bigger topic about why I think Luka is going to be a Laker long-term. And I've had a lot of people ask me about that. So I'm going to wait on that one because I feel like I'd be rushing it, and I don't want to rush that topic. I really like that topic. Okay, a couple things going on around the NBA. Okay, one of the things. The Phoenix Suns fire Mike Budenholzer after one season. If I'm correct, they fired Frank Vogel after one season as well. And if I'm correct, he's due $40 million over the next 4 years. Yep, Budenholzer accepted the job on a 5-year, $50 million contract. So let's just say Budenholzer is got a pretty good 4 years in front of him. Okay, that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for much. I just want to have a contract where I have 4 years, $40 million left on my contract. And then they basically say, hey, just don't work and you'll get paid. Wait, what are you talking about? If you get a job somewhere else, then that contract becomes tricky. So if you just want to, I don't know, travel the world and drink margaritas for 4 years, then you're good. And we'll pay you $40 million for doing it. They are all over the place. I don't know what to tell you about the Phoenix Suns. Completely all over the place. What are they going to do with Kevin Durant in the offseason? Beal still has 2 years and $111 million left on his contract. Just a complete shit show in Phoenix. And it all goes on the owner. Owner came in, bought the team, throwing around money like everything. And money obviously can't buy you championships. Well, listen, money can help you with a lot of things, but it can't guarantee you anything. And Phoenix, it's just a complete disaster what's going on there. Play-in tournament games tonight. So we do have 2 games going on tonight. Orlando. Atlanta at Orlando, that's at 4:30. I don't really have much interest in that, but really like the 7-8 matchup. Kind of be a fun game. Memphis at Golden State. Both teams ended up with the same record, 48-34. Golden State's hosting the game, obviously, in San Francisco. So we got some NBA action tonight. Whether you're a fan of the play-in tournament, you're not a fan of the play-in tournament, definitely got some action tonight. You'll get to see both of those games. I expect Golden State to win, see if Jimmy Butler is completely healthy. Golden State looked gassed at the end of the year. How much does that come into effect? But the real surprise here is if Memphis won this game, not if the Warriors win the game. Another NBA topic I want to get into here real quick. Pistons, the Detroit Pistons, have restricted fans outside of Michigan from buying tickets for home games versus the Knicks. We've seen this before in sports, and this is just the statement that the Pistons put out. To better serve local fans looking to attend the playoff games at Little Caesars Arena, the Detroit Pistons are restricting ticket sales to customers located in Michigan and certain parts of Ohio, Indiana, and Ontario, Canada, as determined by the Pistons and subject to change. Basically, what they're trying to do is they want to make sure that there's less Knicks fans there, more Pistons fans there. You guys got an issue with that? Anybody got a problem with that? I've said this before. Whatever a team thinks needs to give their squad a home court advantage for a home game, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. I mean, if that's what you need to do to make sure that Knicks fans who are already in the state of Michigan or maybe coming from somewhere else and they want to buy up all the tickets, if that's the strategy that you think you need to do to win, then go ahead and do it. But you guys can give me your thoughts on that. And then the last thing that I got here that I just saw today, Thunder Celtics favorites to win the NBA title. Public likes the Lakers. So Oklahoma City Thunder, Boston Celtics are the consensus favorites to win the title this season, showing plus 180 and plus 190 odds. However, the Lakers, arguably the league's most popular team, their stunning trade for Luka in February, lurk just below and are easily the betting public's favorite squad. But that's always the case. So OKC plus 180, Boston plus 190, Cavs plus 575, and then Lakers plus 1,300. So Lakers second best odds in the Western Conference to win the NBA championship. Okay. That's most of my NBA news right there that I wanted to kind of fire off on everybody. But let's take a look at some of the comments here, and then we'll keep things going. Let's see what we got here. A Memphis win over Golden State to the other side of the bracket. I'll take that. I will take that. No question about it. I want Memphis to win, partly to talk to Warriors fans, to talk trash to Warrior fans, because the Warriors will fare better against the Thunder compared to the Grizz. Okay, a couple more of these here. Let's see what else we got here. All right, let's keep going here. What else we have here? Let's see what else we got here. Slee, when are you taking the show to 2 hours? I don't think any time in the near future, to be honest with you. I kind of like this whole go an hour, but you really end up going an hour 15, hour 20. And the show kind of goes based upon how the flow of the show is going. So maybe down the road, but not anything in the immediate future. Slee doesn't care because the Padres did the same thing. This was talking about the Pistons kind of keeping it in the time zone. I'll say it again. I really, whatever gives your squad an advantage, you do it. It's home court or it's home field. So you do it. Let's see what they got here. It's cool, but they have enough fans to fill the stadium. Pistons, I give Detroit a lot of credit. I really do give the Pistons a lot of credit. Churning around the season the way they did, I think it's pretty badass what they were able to do. If Detroit gets Booker as their 2, they will be the second best team in the East. I think that's the one player that will not leave the Phoenix Suns is going to be Devin Booker. All right, a couple more comments here, and then we're done. Let's see what we got here. Slee, where were you during the earthquake yesterday? Can I tell you guys something? I didn't feel anything. Nothing. Literally nothing. Felt nothing yesterday. So I had no idea what was going on. It felt nothing. Now, granted, I was in LA. I was still in LA today as well, but I didn't feel anything. All right, my people, I got to get out of here. I did mention I got to kind of get out of here close to 9. Tomorrow, back on at 8 a.m. And tomorrow, Alan Horton, who covers the Minnesota Timberwolves, he's the radio voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves, is going to join me at 8:30. So I'm looking forward to have that conversation with him. Surely some more topics that we'll get into. Break down a little bit of what happens tonight in the playing tournament. So we'll get into all that. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for the new members that we got here today as well. Thank you, everybody. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.